The big guy is in big denial. A new report claims that Joe Biden isn't buying those recent polls that show Donald Trump mopping the floor with his sorry butt in several key states, swing states, that is. It's got Democrats worried that Joe just isn't accepting reality. Quote, the dismissiveness of the poor polling is sincere, not public spin. President Biden doesn't believe his bad poll numbers, and neither do many of his closest advisors. While Joe isn't seeing the writing on the wall, the media is trying to stage an intervention.
These Sunbelt battleground states, frankly, for the Joe Biden campaign, these numbers are an absolute disaster. The smallest lead is in Arizona for Donald Trump. He's up 6. Look at this, 9 in Georgia, 13 in Nevada. My goodness gracious, my God.
When you look at these stats, it's very clear that Biden is actually worse off now 6 months from the election than Obama was, and when Bill Clinton was. They had disapproval ratings that were pretty high, but his are even lower, right? So that concerns me.
Okay, Dana, you recall that I think it was Axelrod and Obama's people went to Biden's people and they said, look, guys, you're not doing well. You need to talk to us. And the response was like, we got this.
So this has been going on for almost a year, where you had Democrats who care about Joe Biden's presidency, or at least want to stay in power. And they're saying, you guys, you have to pay attention. And they kept saying, like, remember in January, the complaint from Democrats was, there's no urgency with this guy. And then they had the State of the Union. They're like, okay, good. It was good. They thought it was great. Well, that lasted about as long as cotton candy does. And so now for him to be in denial means it's willful deniability, right? It's not like, oh, no, we actually have good numbers here. They're actually telling their people who are investing in them, right? Imagine being asked, we'd love for you to donate to the super PAC. Can you give us $5 million? Would you give them $5 million? What are they going to do with it? I mean, President Trump has been in court for 3 weeks, and they can't lay a glove on him, and he is only able to talk twice a day, and then on Wednesdays. So today, Michael Whatley, who is from the RNC, was on Newsroom as well. They're in single digits in places that they might not win, but if you're in single digits in New Jersey, where they had the huge rally, but that is saying something because Biden won by a significant amount. The last thing I will say is the numbers on blacks and Latinos in the New York Times poll shows to me the unraveling of the Biden coalition. I don't see how they get it back.
You know, I think that he's trying to be strong now, Jesse, taking on the Trump move that, we've got to start putting tariffs on Chinese goods, on Chinese vehicles. Is that going to help them?
It should. I like the tariffs, and he should have done it a long time ago. And there's a lot of agreement between Trump and Biden on China. But he doesn't brag about it. If Trump slapped tariffs on Chinese EVs, he'd be out there holding a press conference bragging about it. It would just make major news. Biden's silent. And I'm sure Dana read Nate Cohn in the New York Times today. He made some very prescient points. He said this is the reason why Joe Biden should be worried. In November, when they had the New York Times battleground poll, he wasn't doing very well. Since then, the stock market's gone up 25%. Trump has been on trial, and Biden has just unloaded tens of millions of dollars of ads in the battlegrounds. And not only is he not just the same place, he's gotten worse. So what do you do if your entire coalition is unraveling? Blacks, Hispanics, young people, you're tied. And it said 70% of the country wants to see major change, like throw the table up major change in the country. And no one thinks Joe Biden is the man to do that. People don't like Trump, but they say, I might not like him, but he is going to bring major change. But he's still within striking distance, they say. If he can hold the Rust Belt, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, it's a race, and abortion is still popular in the battleground. So it's not over yet.
You know, Harold, it's not the Democrat Party, it's Joe Biden. And I don't understand, given the fact that they have so much money now, I mean, why don't they just say, Joe, your time's up. We can't lose this.
Well, I'm part of that party, and I don't believe that the party is there. I don't know if we'll ever get there. I think if we find ourselves, once the trial is over and once we are joining the campaign come middle of summer, if the polling data is consistent like it is now or persists like it is now, where you see 5 to 10 to 12, 13-point deficits in key states, The convention's in August. I mean, I would imagine even on the Republican side, I doubt is the case looking at the numbers that you'd have these kinds of problems. But if you get to the convention, you don't believe your candidate can win. With abortion and so many other things on the minds of Democratic voters, I think a conversation might ensue. But I don't think that's going to happen. The challenge Mr. Biden has today is that Mr. Trump has successfully made the race thus far, and it's very, very early. And I saw Michael on as well on your show this morning, Dana. If the race remains a referendum on Biden, which means age, inflation, and border, Mr. Biden's going to have a huge problem between now and November. If the Democrats are able to make this race a referendum on Trump, which is ordinarily hard to do against a challenger, but since he's been president, the country has a vision, has a history, and has an understanding of what he might do as president, meaning in abortions, the chaos that comes, Democrats will get their narrative together. You've got to get it back there. Now, look, you can shake your head, but that's the referendum on Biden. I think the economy in some ways, and for a lot of people, is decent. For a lot of other people, it's not. And it's that narrative, as I always say, you can't tell people they're doing well when they don't believe they're doing well. So whomever is best, who's first and at the end able to make it a referendum on the other person, that person will be advantaged.
Greg,
come November.
65% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So we can, Harold can say some people are living good. Most
I didn't say
people
that.
are not.
I didn't say some people.
You said some people are and some people aren't.
The economy's doing well for some people.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what it said.
By some, he means Harold Ford Jr.
And Greg Gutfeld. Thank you for that loan, by the way.
You make a good point. It's like people don't like their bad experiences denied. The Democrats and Biden specifically have denied all the bad news, which is, the border, crime, inflation. Now it's polling. Why is that? Why is that bad? Because they denied the other bad news about the border, about crime and inflation, and did nothing because there was no problem. Now they have the bad polling. We need to deny them another opportunity to serve in the White House. Biden is like a slob with every major health problem, ignoring his doctor. He's, he has all of these issues and he says, I'm fine. It's still early. But the denial of the polling could be a sign that they're preparing for something else, a surprise outcome, right? Whether it's an October surprise or a different candidate. But if the election gap in polling gets too wide, it's going to be really hard to make the public believe in an upset. We know they're desperate. Biden's in a free fall, which he is good at, which is why we have to push for total transparency in the election. Because remember, they interfered in this election with lawfare right in front of you. Imagine what they're doing behind your back, right? Time Magazine boasted about the cabal to get Trump out of office in 2020. So they believe that they have the moral authority to do whatever is possible. We also didn't mention the other thing about the polling, which they never really talk about. It's a lot of men. It's men who are leaving the Democratic Party. We talk about it a lot. But we have to remind people why. They don't feel welcome in this party, which is basically becoming the angry white female party. And when you feel like you're the bad guy, why do you want to be there? They don't even like male behavior. If you talk about self-defense, if you talk about what you would do about crime, if you would talk about, law and order, or just the basic nature of consequences, all of that is pushed aside for this weird amorphous so-called compassion that ultimately punishes women, whether it's in athletics or on the street when it comes to crime.
Yep. Okay.
So shut up, Jesse.
I did not even say anything.
I knew what you were thinking.
All right, ahead. What could possibly go wrong? San Francisco is giving homeless drunks free booze.
Yeah.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.